And podcast series of Business of Cannabis. BofC Live highlights the companies, brands, people, and trends driving the global cannabis sector. Learn more at businessofcannabis.ca. Our BofC Live guest today is Dana Baranovsky of the CannDelta team. She checks in with us to answer a question about Health Canada inspections of licensed cannabis facilities. Dana Baranovsky, nice to see you.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going great. This is your first time on BofC Live. You are with the CannDelta team. We like to connect with the CannDelta team on many Mondays because we get a lot of questions and it will surprise nobody that listens to anything on Business of Cannabis. I generally don't know the answers, and so we like to pose it to you, our official regulatory advisory. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, before we actually get to the question, the reason why we're asking you this question is because you have deep experience at a licensed producer. Talk a second about that, then we'll get into the questions people have.
Yeah, so I was at a licensed producer for around a year and a half, and I worked in compliance, but it was kind of a mid-sized operation. So it was a really good opportunity for me to get my hands on a bunch of different things. As you probably heard, it's kind of like everyone's wearing a lot of different hats. So I was doing a lot of compliance, I was doing a lot of quality, and I was pretty involved in the operation side of things as well.
Yeah, that's cool. So you have that sort of by way of background, you bring that to CannDelta. And the reason why we're asking you this question is we got a series of questions about, even saying the words is going to scare me, Health Canada inspections.
Yeah.
Does that make people sweat generally?
Yes, it does. It makes me sweat personally. Like I've been a part of them before and they are super nerve-wracking. In the past too, you could also expect like an unexpected Health Canada inspection, which was really, really nerve-wracking. Now they're actually doing them virtually. So the RP generally gets a heads up of when Health Canada is gonna inspect, which is really nice.
Did it used to be like literally someone from Health Canada would come knock on your door or like call from the parking lot?
Yeah, they would essentially just, buzz your intercom and your front desk person would tell you Health Canada is here and that an inspection is happening.
Wow. Like, I don't like, it's kind of like when the principal would like walk around the hallways at school and everybody had to like sit up straight. And I imagine, it's much more, the compliance part is obviously really scary, important, but also in real time, probably scary, but so that's changed a bit through COVID, I imagine. They're virtual now?
Yeah, so they're virtual right now. That was a change that they made after COVID-19 became a problem. Social distancing is important. So now you can expect to get an email from Health Canada. They're going to set up an inspection with you. They're going to start asking you for documents like right off the bat, so that you can expect to get a list of key documentation that they're requesting, and then they're going to ask you about who's going to be part of the inspection. So it's nice because it gives you some time to prepare as well. You can essentially set up your staff to, clean those areas that might have been neglected and put labels on your inventory. So it's a lot easier this way, in my opinion. The only thing is now that Health Canada is focusing a lot more on your documentation.
Because they're not there physically.
Exactly.
And so do they say, I'm really curious about this. They say in an hour, we want this documentation uploaded to our, is that the type of thing?
So generally now you're looking at like 5-day inspections, which is pretty long. Like when I was at the license holder, we had inspections that were around like 1 to 3 days max. So now they're 5 days. Generally, they ask you for the records like ahead of time. You have some more leeway on how long it takes you to get there or to get them, but you should be able to pull any single record, but at least by end of day.
Yeah. Wow. And how frequent? I have like a million questions, but how frequent does this happen? And does your compliance and like the first time it happens and your responsiveness determine how long it's going to be till the next one?
So that's actually a good question. And this was a question that I had when I was the license holder, because when I just got there, we had a Health Canada inspection, and then we just expected every 6 months to have an inspection. And then 6 months would come along and we didn't see anything. And then we waited like a year and still Health Canada had to come by. And so Health Canada actually published some data about this back in December. They were looking at March 2018 to March 2019, that fiscal year. And they said that they had 248 inspections. At the time of legalization, the Cannabis Act, we had around 117 licensed producers. So we're like at 600 now. And so that means that each licensed producer is probably being inspected around twice a year, which makes sense. But from my understanding right now, from speaking to a lot of license holders now and my experience at the license holder, they're just not happening as frequently. Yeah. And maybe like some people might have a sigh of relief, like, oh, Health Canada is not coming. But I think it actually puts you in a bad situation because you don't really have experience with Health Canada inspections. And also you're kind of rusty if you hadn't done one in a while.
So do I'm curious, like, do people do like mock inspections? Is someone like given the task of like sending a fake email that says, hey, your thing is now tomorrow, here's the documentation we want? Like, are there people who are responsible for that role, like in-house?
For sure. I did one when I was at a license holder, and it's a great opportunity to just kind of like do a run through and prepare. But there are some challenges with that as well. The first is like having people take it seriously. You generally, you have friends there, you know what the problems are, so you might kind of like overlook things, or you might not even like notice that it's a problem anymore. So it's really hard to make it realistic, in my opinion. But you can also get a third party to do it for you as well, who have Health Canada experience and experience at license holders. So for CannDelta, for example, we have Dr. Sherry Boudrum, our CEO, who's a former Health Canada inspector with the medical cannabis program. So we tailor it exactly like Health Canada would do it. So I really don't think that there's any other more realistic way to go about it than getting a former inspector to do it for you.
Yeah, and no, it really is. I watch a lot of West Wing, the show, and they do like a lot of, there's some security drills, but also like policy drills and like things that are happening. It does obviously keep everybody on their toes, which is all you really want and all you can expect from the crew there. Let me ask you a question, and I don't know, like, is it different from like a licensed producer that's like a large one at a micro or a micro, like, or are the inspections basically the same, just on a smaller scale or different frequency?
The scope of them is going to be pretty much the same. You can expect to have different types of inspections. So you can have a regular inspection, you can have a sales inspection, a promotion inspection, or a targeted inspection. And Health Canada just published some data in December that shows that you can probably expect to have a regular or a sales inspection. But generally, they're going to have the exact same format. You're going to have inspectors reach out to you. You're going to have the planned inspection dates. And then they're going to provide you with an inspection report with all of the observations that they've made. And then you're expected to provide corrective actions for any of those observations, which could be back and forth. So in general, it's going to be the same across the board.
Yeah. I can imagine how nerve-wracking it must be. And like, I guess from a sort of CannDelta perspective, like obviously you do the sort of spot inspections that you're sort of a tester inspection, but also just in an ongoing way, like, are there, I assume there are ways that people like the work you were doing in-house at the license holder that just, we always need to be, is there like a monthly thing? You're like, let's go through all the things they could ask, make sure everything's in order just in case. Like, is that, I honestly don't know, but is that like how a QAP works, or like the, operations manager? Like, what's the right balance of that?
Yeah. So I would say the right balance is really, first of all, if there are any issues that are happening, correct them as quickly as possible, because you never know when Health Canada is going to show up. Also, knowing what to expect from a Health Canada inspection is really useful. So knowing what documents they're going to ask for, making sure those are updated at all times. So like your floor plan, for example, make sure your inventory is all up to date. that your, you know, sanitation logs are up to date and verified. Those things are going to be really, really useful. As well as it's really useful to just have the staff know what their responsibilities are if Health Canada came in, because there's probably going to be things that they're going to need to do. So having an outline of best practices like is generally really useful as well.
Wow, I'm like, I'm nervous myself just talking about it because I could just imagine the panic that would just ensue when it actually happens. But I also and we do work with you and you are a partner, but I do think it's helpful to have folks that have, like you, that have been through it on the sort of receiving end, like Sherry, who's actually done the inspection, and just to have someone really at all times helping you prepare for the inevitable, which is a Health Canada inspection, which will always be nerve-wracking, but less nerve-wracking if you actually are doing the things you're talking about, but also working with folks who've been through it before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Dana, I really appreciate you spending time because I think this is a question that, well, I certainly have, but a lot of people have as they get into this, but even once they're into it and are a license holder themselves, they know it's coming, but preparing for that as best they can in an ongoing way as best they can is like really important.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing worse than getting an inspection report that's riddled with major critical observation, or even like an inspection rating that's non-compliant. That's ultimately gonna put you back, and you're not going to be able to do your operations. You're not going to be able to focus on revenues because you're backtracking trying to fix all the problems.
Right, and it's heading them off is just a better way to go about it. And as Sherry often says, like, the regulations are there for a reason, right? And you need to comply for a reason. And not being compliant not only does all the things you're talking about around revenue and really putting a crimp in your operations, but there are reasons for the regulations, and that is sort of consumer safety and health. So you know, it's really important. And also, you know, it's also the growing industry, and everybody, you know, one non-compliant actually has ripple effects to folks who are also in the industry.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And everyone's kind of working together now too. So a non-compliance in one area can literally trickle into other people's products, and could potentially cause a recall. And that's not something that we want to see.
I know that, and we've seen recalls for sure. And we've seen recalls for a whole variety of reasons, some of like bad labeling, but also bad product. And that all those things sort of, as you're saying, of course, they have a massive effect on that one company doing it, but so many people are touching that product along the supply chain. It has really, really incredible reflex. Well, Dana, I really appreciate you taking the time this Monday morning and talking about this, really the issue that you've been through, but also the work CannDelta does to help prep companies to actually get through it well. So thank you for your time. We look forward to connecting with you down the road, and welcome to BofC Live for the first time. We look forward to your next visit.
Thanks for having me.
Our work is made possible with the ongoing support of our official partners, including Cannabis at Work, Cannabis Benchmarks, CannDelta, Gallagher, and Torque & Mains.